Hello, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and I want to thank all of our moderators, expert guests, and solution sponsors for participating in these Inside Jam panel discussions. This has been a big year of changes with the launch of the all-new, always-on InsideJam.com community site. For the past 4 years, everyone here at Solutions Review has been leaning in to build the Inside Jam into a celebration of enterprise technology, with best practices, expert analysis, and solution showcases. And we want all of you to join us there to keep the jam going into the new year and beyond. If you haven't joined Inside Jam, please do. And if you already have, take a moment to invite some of your colleagues. And again, thank you all for being here and enjoy today's discussion.
Solutions Review presents Inside Jam, a social media community for enterprise technology. Hello and welcome to Hour 4 of Business Intelligence Inside Jam. My name is Jonathan Paula. I'm the Director of Multimedia and Events here at Solutions Review, and I am pleased to welcome another great lineup of panelists as we discuss scaling AI to advance analytics for big data workloads. It is going to be a big data discussion. Sean Rogers has agreed to moderate, so I'll let him start the introductions. 30 seconds or less, a bit about yourself and what excites you for today's topic, Sean.
Jonathan, thanks a lot. It's great to be here. I'm Sean Rogers, CEO and Bark Fellow for Bark US, an analyst firm that covers data and analytics and machine learning and AI, as well as CPM and sort of all things data. So very excited to be here to talk about how to advance analytics in a big data world and talk about some disruptive technologies. So thanks for having me.
Sounds exciting. Brendan, how about you?
Great. I'm Brendan Grady. I'm the general manager of the analytics business unit at Click. Click is a 30-year-old data and analytics company that focuses on helping enterprises get data where they need it and find out as much information as they can about that data. Why I'm excited here is it seems like this AI topic is going to stick around. It seems like it's gaining more and more momentum. So love getting together with a group like this to talk about some of the goods, the bads, the uglies.
Well said. From the University of Chicago, Professor Dave, how are you?
Good to meet you. Thank you for bringing me here. My name is Dave Cameron. I am a professor at University of Chicago and elsewhere, actually, and I focus in marketing analytics. I have a long career in business. I have my own consulting part-time business, and what I'm trying to do is, in a university setting, is help students prepare for today's environment with where AI is going and how to prepare themselves in that situation.
Excellent. Next up, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hi there, I'm Jonathan Friedman, Speed Data CEO and co-founder. Great being here with you all. I have to say these are exciting times in data center and in the high tech today. Really being part a revolution going on in the data centers, and we are part of it. It's truly exciting time and truly great people to talk to today.
Absolutely. Nima, you're up.
I'm Nima Nagaban, CEO and co-founder of Kinetica. We're a real-time database that leverages generative AI and vectorized processing to basically allow to have a conversation with your high-volume, large-scale data sets, that might come from sensor or machine data sources. And, I'm excited because, I think as other panelists mentioned, we're at, I think, the beginning of, a really powerful time where, you're going to have a democratization of analytics. You're going to have an explosion of kind of new use cases and capabilities that enterprises are going to be looking to deploy. And, we're at the beginning of it. So excited.
Excellent. Thanks for being here. And last but not least, Sanjeev.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sanjeev Mohan. I am a founder and principal analyst at my own advisory firm called Sanjmo. I started my own company just over 2 years ago after a long stint at Gartner, where I was part of the data and analytics team. So I have covered the space of data management for decades now, since I started my career at Oracle in the 1990s. And it just expanded. Every day we have a new AI announcement, and it's literally nonstop action these days.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, one and all, for being here. I'm looking forward to the discussion. So with that said, I'll step out of the way. Sean, let's start us off with some opening remarks.
I will. An exciting time for sure. I like what Sanjeev just said. I've been in this industry for 30 years. I don't remember being so challenged to keep track of exciting things that are changing in the industry, that are moving quickly, that are causing innovation and also driving some disruption. I think everybody listening in understands this topic of big data and how we need to leverage it to do these cool things with AI. And that's kind of the cornerstone of what we're going to talk about. So expect some discussion around best practices for data management, talent and team organization, how your company can ensure your scalability and practices for that. And these are sort of the topics that we're planning to jump into. And instead of babbling on, I'm dive in with the panel right away and ask my first question. And Steve, if it's all right, I'm going to come your way with this first one. But what are the big challenges that the listeners are likely thinking about today when it comes to, I want to have AI in a big data environment to sort of advance my analytic practice and what we're doing to be innovative? What are you hearing from end users, and what do you see as the biggest challenge? And I think you're on mute, so pop yourself off before you start.
So, Sean, I used to, by the way, we are in such an accelerated pace right now. I used to joke that every 3 months I reinvent myself. I've changed that to every 3 days. So same question, if you ask me week from week, it changes. For example, last week I was saying the biggest challenge is governance, AI governance. I have this powerful technology with large language models, but with hallucinations, with security, all of those things are really big. If you ask this week, I've changed my answer. I think this week the biggest challenge is figuring out what should I do, where should I invest without being out of date in a month's time. Just this week, just yesterday, Google came out with a new large language model called Gemini. IBM announced AI alliance with Meta and 50 other organizations. Databricks announced a new vector search RAG. I'm sure Kinetica has stuff that Nima is eager to share. MongoDB's vector search went GA. This has all happened in the last 3 days of this week. So I feel really strongly and feel bad for the end users because they are trying to figure out which model should I pick, where do I run it, what does my integration framework look like, and there are just so many players in the space. So I think that's a big challenge these days.
I absolutely agree. Who else has got comments on this side of it? Yeah. What are the end user community talking to you about, and what are they most nervous about? Brendan, you ready to go?
I completely agree. Really, the pace of change is really phenomenal compared to what used to be just a few years ago, and it really puts a lot of challenges to the industry. I will say that looking back on maybe the last a year ago, we saw this huge demand around infrastructure supporting LLMs and supporting AI and the changes in AI. And as we continue looking forward, we now, I think, will begin seeing the industry adapting and trying to see how we handle that capacity of data processing, whether it's quality of data, compliance, governance, or privacy issues. All of these will come together, and the industry will be challenged on how to process that in the most effective way.
Brendan, did you have a comment on it?
Yeah, I'll tell you one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing within our customer base is that when AI goes wrong, you become a news story, right? That's the reality, right? I encourage the audience, just Google AI fails, and that can happen. And Sanjeev, like you were saying, as you would say, it was all about the data. It's all about the data, but it is, right? We're seeing a lot of our customers really starting to think about their data management and data governance strategies, because when you're working with structured data, that's one thing. When you start bringing in generative AI into this and start combining both types of data, that creates a whole can of worms that can lead to your company getting hallucinations, giving your customers bad service, giving wrong answers. And we all know what happens. You end up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal when that happens. So huge, interesting times for us. Because Sean, I've been in the industry as long as you have, and this is scaring me, to be frank.
It's actually mind-boggling. It how fast and how on top of the topic you have to be, and as we become more innovative, we are going to see a sophistication that's going to come like a tidal wave, because it has to. Dave, Nima, comments on our first topic? What are you hearing from a challenge standpoint?
I think those are all, definitely, challenges that I'm seeing. I mean, I think the other one is that I see organizations that are kind of getting lost in the noise, right? Like they know they need to be doing something. They may not have, a super mature AI practice, and they have great tech teams, and they're all obviously excited to get going, but they don't have the kind of right kind of framework or outcome-based approach to really drive a focused platform deployment, creation, architecture that can really get them where they need to go as a business. And so they kind of just get stuck kind of chasing the next new announcement, or just following different technologies, but not getting to a place where the enterprise is actually saying, wow, this is going to actually change our business. So I think this is another challenge that this kind of relentless pace that Sanjeev talked about is creating.
Yeah, and for me, I'll add on a little bit to what Sanjeev said, and the like, is that what I see is the need for domain expertise to govern AI, however that may be, because it's a great tool, right? But I'll give an example. One of the companies I worked with decided, well, let's just test it on our hiring practice. We'll run it through as if HR was going to use this AI tool, and they found that the reason people got rejected was they had a lot of certificates, but no real world experience. And that made a lot of sense. But then they said the reason the AI tool said the reason people got hired the most was the first name of David. And it's like, well, yeah, but you don't put first name in your AI consideration set, right? So the tool is great, but you need to have that common sense. You need to have that domain expertise to say someone's name is not part of the hiring process. And unless you do that, you end up, again, on the front page of AI failures, right? So that's my example of saying it gets you a long way, but you can't lose that domain expertise. You can't lose that critical thinking.
Great comments on the first question. So in just a couple of minutes, we've used governance, compliance, quality, privacy, failure can be public, accuracy, hallucinations, and domain expertise. Wow. I do a lot of these panels where it's very highly specific. So I'm going to drag us back to being specific. First word in today's title is scale, or scaling AI. So let me come to a question with all of you. And I guess I'm looking for perhaps a best practice question or some insight as to where you help your customers begin. But if I want to scale my analytic practice using AI and leverage my investment in my big data, where do I start, and how do I have the right foundation? Or perhaps that's even the better question. What is the foundation for scaling in today's world? Who wants to lead us into that one?
So if I may say, there are, when you first started asking about scale, where my mind went? Chips, silicon. Because I just came back from AWS reInvent, and such a big part of reInvent was, hey, look, we have a new Graviton 4, and then NVIDIA's been on stage at every conference with their new Grace Hopper chips, connected with this 1 terabyte per second NVLink. Microsoft announced a new silicon called Maya 2 weeks ago at their conference. So that's one part of scale, but that is scaling the training. Your question is more on how do I scale my analytics practice? And one of the things that came up was this lack of education right now on what to do. So I tell my customers, you need to follow a very structured process. It is so easy for any company to now go to Hugging Face, pick a model, maybe an open source model like Llama 2, and then start using it against your data. But now you've got no governance. In fact, we used to complain about shadow IT. I think there's a shadow AI that we are seeing now. So what I tell my customers is that have a system in place where you have your potential use cases. You have some way, a catalog where you are saying these are the use cases. There's a risk committee or somebody that's evaluating what models to use, and then it's going through some sort of an assessment. Is this a good use case for us to try? There's no ROI, by the way, because we haven't reached the stage of ROI. We're just so early. We don't know anything. We are just experimenting at this point. But having that structured process to bring a model in, test it out, monitor it, make sure the answers are grounded, curated. Somehow, we are doing some governance on that, and then open it up for the wider usage.
So
Great input.
relating
Yeah.
relating to Sanjeev's comment about chips, I would say it is amazing to see how AI is driving a huge change in all data center infrastructure. It basically opens the door for more and more types of chips and actually domain-specific accelerators. When you used to talk about chips in the data centers, you would talk just maybe 5 or 6 years ago, you would only talk about CPUs. And now the data center is full of domain-specific accelerators, and I expect that trend to continue. And actually, we will have a more diverse world of compute on the one hand, and of course, it would cause things to be substantially more complex to handle. But I completely correlate that, and that is actually being pushed strongly by the need for scale, simply because the old version of how you do compute is dying.
I agree. I saw a piece in the news yesterday that talked about which solution provider got to buy the most NVIDIA chips last month.
And by the way, today, Google Cloud's TPU version 5 chip was announced. So we are literally living in this whirlpool.
Yeah.
But of course, it is not just NVIDIA, and it's not just GPUs. This is a much wider trend, okay? It goes also NVIDIA with its own DPU. Multiple types of accelerators are getting into the data centers today.
Yeah. In fact, one of the important things that we never used to have to worry about is sustainability, because the amount of energy consumption of GPUs is devastating, actually, to be honest. So CPUs have to come back, or there needs to be a cheaper way to run these models.
Yeah, I think the word scale can have multiple meanings, right? One is like on the hardware compute side, but it's also kind of on the operational side, the operational process side, where one of the things I see some of our most advanced customers do is have a real defined QA process for their Gen AI stack, right? Where if I'm doing additional fine tunings, or if I'm iterating on my training, how am I ensuring that I'm keeping a baseline of behavior that my end users are expecting, right? So that's something that right now isn't really well developed, and you might do an extra fine tuning or an iterative training, and kind of the behavior and functionality that a lot of your users were expecting, you've lost because you didn't know to really test for it, right? So that's another thing that right now is kind of early days, where I'm seeing the best data science teams put together ways of, let's validate that we always have a certain baseline of behavior and an inference predictability, so to speak, so that we can make sure that our end product is something that we can kind of reliably iterate on.
And the really interesting angle about all of this, right, is I can't believe in 2023 I'm going to say this out loud, but it does come back down to people, process, and technology. It actually does, right? There's every single one of these components, and what we're seeing is sort of five things that the good customers are really thinking about. First and foremost, make sure your AI initiative isn't a science project. Don't do it just because it's fun and it's interesting. And Sanjeev, to your point, you cycle through all these models and burn up all this consumption. That's going to hurt you. Second thing we see people thinking about is they're actually reconsidering the data. What I kicked this off with, data is unbelievably important. The all the V's that go with it. The third area we're really starting to see people think about is that risk and ethics, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, and we can skip that. Fourth area is people are forgetting that some traditional AI techniques like machine learning and predictive analytics, it's just as important as this generative piece of the puzzle, right? That's there as well. And then finally, these public models versus a private model, we're starting to see people really question their approach there. But there's a bonus one. Don't forget the humans. The humans are involved here, right? So you want to make sure we're keeping the human in the loop. And you'll hear a lot of our customers talk about sort of a three-tier model where they're doing that. So those are the things that we're considering to scale it. It's people, process, technology.
Yeah, and I'm kind of on, like, I feel, Brendan, you and I are on the same page, with my earlier example of, make sure your human resources people look at it and don't just take it blindly so you're not putting somebody's name through it. I teach Python, and it uses that standard machine learning, the algorithms, the statistical algorithms and all that kind of stuff. And where a big advantage here with AI is you can tell Python what you want to do, and you can get a program that's 98% of the way there that saves you an immense amount of time. And you only need that additional 2% of human touch to go at it. But to your point, you still need that 2%. So what it's done is it's taken a 6-hour job and turned it into a half-hour job, but it hasn't turned it into a 1-minute job. To scale it, what you can do is you can share code through what comes out of AI in Python, and you can have a great library very quickly. And then all you need is people who understand what you're trying to do, what data do you need for inputs to add that final touch on it, and can get a really great product. And what we do is like a GitHub type of thing where, you share the code amongst people so that, they're not reinventing the wheel each time.
Great comments. And I take notes while you guys are talking, and I wrote down people, process while Sanjeev was talking, because it's funny that we always end up going back to the same things. And what usually causes the go back remark is what I call BSTS, bright shiny toy syndrome. And that's exactly where Gen AI is sitting right now. It's this bright shiny toy that everybody wants to be able to tell their board they're working on or working with or are in the midst of developing. And Brendan, you made a great comment along with the not being a science project, and don't forget about conventional machine learning and I hesitate to say normal or regular AI. And it's almost been kind of pushed to the side a little bit these last 9 or 10 months as Gen AI has become such a bright, shiny toy. Let me take you guys back to some of this core stuff. I'm going to go back to data for just a minute. I want to ask it in a couple of ways. Because we're talking about big data and analytics and AI today, are we talking about completely unstructured data? Are we talking about different data stores like document data stores and things like that? What are your customers talking to you about to develop models with, or to augment the understandings inside of a model, or to apply, RAG and fine tuning to models? Where does big data, the data component, play as a foundation for being able to scale in this world with AI? Who wants to lead that part of the conversation?
I can start. This is my favorite topic.
Oh, good. All right, cool.
In Gartner, my title was Big Data Research Analyst. So although I don't use the term big data anymore, so we have a huge problem with introduction of these large language models because they run on unstructured data. But all my corporate data is structured. So how do I bring these two worlds together? If we go down the path of having two different stacks or infrastructure, we are going to overcomplicate things if they're not already complicated. So we need to bring it together. In fact, I would say the future of these large models is that they're becoming multimodal. So your same model, depending upon your prompt, you can ask it to translate something, so text. You can ask it to write code. You can ask questions of video, images, sound, PDF documents. And because we are combining structured and unstructured, I'm a big believer in using databases that already exist that have been enhanced to store vector embeddings, because that way I can do both my semantic search and my normal traditional search on the same database. I'm not uh, in the need of having specialized databases. There are use cases where my need is so specific for that I need a standalone vector database, and that's good. I'm sure those database companies will do well. But overall, whether it's a relational or it's a document store or it's a graph database, having the ability to do semantic search on that through vector embeddings, to me, is really important.
Yeah, I think there's some other challenges with structured data kind of in this transformer large language model style approach, which is for like, document data, the embedding generation function is well understood. And, you can, it's widely available to do a standard approach on, tokenizing that document and generating vectors. For structured data, especially like time series, that doesn't really exist right now. Like there's not a, one easy way to generate the right kind of vector embedding to capture some of the unique things around structured data, especially like time series, where you may want to find similarity of the shape of the data or the seasonality of it. There's kind of a bunch of implicit things inside of structured data and time series data, which a lot of enterprise data is, that the current vector embedding libraries just don't have anything to handle these kind of these challenges, right? So if you think about how the vector similarity search is kind of the backbone of this Gen AI revolution right now in the structured space, a big part of that, which is like the embedding generation, hasn't really been figured out in a way that is widely applicable like it is on the unstructured text side.
So we are actually hearing two things with respect to big data processing around that. One thing is that a lot of customers use, let's say, standard big data processing in order to qualify the data. So there is, as data grows, there is more and more work around that and more processing needed. And the other thing we're hearing is it actually reflects back the use of LLMs and Gen AI to reflect back to standard data processing, in the sense that, for example, in what previously someone here said, democratizing data is simply now using Gen AI. Almost every person in the company can now produce its own queries, its own workload directly from English, and that produces multiple types of standard big data processing, which come from Gen AI back to big data processing.
Yeah, and that actually introduced, and that's one of the things that we really specialize in, and that actually creates a whole bunch of challenges where in the past, basically, if you looked at the ecosystem of kind of queries in an enterprise, a lot of it was pre-planned, right? You'd have a dashboard, you'd have a report, and so you'd have data engineering behind that to make sure things were going to be optimal and high performance as best as it could be. Now with this democratization, anyone is going to be able to generate very complex SQL that may touch many different data sets. There's really no way of predicting or really controlling the LLM and what the complexity of the SQL that it might generate. So now you need an engine that can actually deliver these answers in a performant way, and leverage processors, alternative processors, like the GPU or some of the stuff you guys are working on to give you that kind of interactive performance that everyone's looking for. but do it in a way that you can kind of tackle these complex schemas and large data volumes that an enterprise has.
What Sanjeev said prompted me to you got me thinking here a little bit, Sanjeev, about the implication of all of these different tech stacks that are going to be placed. And here we are just humming along saying life is great. There's an easy way to get a nice data fabric, right? We thought all about that. And then someone decided to throw this Gen AI stuff into the mix here, right? So the way we need to think about the data fabrics are going to fundamentally shift, right? It's can't just be have a simple data catalog on top of SAP, Snowflake and a couple other data warehouses or some data lakes. We're really going to need to rethink about that. And right now, most of the offerings out there to bring a data fabric together can't handle the volumes that are about to be thrown at us. So I think that's one of the big challenges that we're going to be running into. We got to start rethinking that data fabric. I don't necessarily think there's going to be one ring to rule them all. I don't necessarily think you're always going to get one tech stack, but how you bring them together is going to add layers of complexity. And then you add in the multi-cloud scenario where it's all over the place. It's just going to force us to think about this completely differently.
Yeah, and from my perspective in the professorial world, I'm actually teaching marketing classes at the graduate level, and the concern is about real time. So you bring in all this unstructured data, but think about it if you're serving ads on connected TV. It's the same way you'd serve ads in digital, and it's new to the TV industry, but that needs to be decided in real time and get somebody the right ad based on what's happening on the TV. And you talk about things being unstructured. How do you end up saying, oh, wait a minute, what's the TV been tuned to? And what are they watching now? And what genre is it? And, that kind of thing. And so it's such a challenge because we're still figuring it all out, right? But to be able to ensure that real time is the primary focus, sometimes some, quote, shortcuts, unquote, have to be made to meet that primary objective.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stunned that we made it halfway through the conversation and the word real time just surfaced. So that was interesting. Let me shift. I want to go back to, we've been talking about kind of how and what to be concerned about. Let me move to the who. Every time we have one of these big disruptions in our industry, it brings about the need for different people tooling, subject matter experts. We all read the Harvard story many years ago. The sexiest, coolest job in the world was being a data scientist. Help me and help everybody that's listening understand what the new center of excellence looks like. Who do our customers need to be inviting to this party? Who needs to be collaborating to bring together these big data investments and workloads, our need to advance our analytics practice, and to bring in AI? How are you seeing these teams come about?
Sean, can I take that one? I'll hop right in.
Please.
As we were looking at what was happening with OpenAI last year, right before it really launched ChatGPT, we decided to put a head of AI in a click. Right, we have a head of AI. You can call that a chief AI officer, whatever you want to call it, but having someone whose sole job is to be that focal point across all of the functions in the organization, because you'll get business people that will go out and want to use any AI tool because their boss said, hey, go use AI, right? So how do you manage that? How do you control that? There's also, for us, there's a product side to it. Obviously, we're an analytics vendor that has AI embedded in it, so we need to think about that. We also then engage our legal teams, our compliance teams, because there's a whole ethical practice around this. And I think the who gets really interesting if we look at the demographic change that's happening in the workforce right now. Digital natives are coming into the workforce, and they are not going to question any answer that is put in front of them because they grew up with it. I have a 17 and a 21-year-old. They just want to ask a question, they want an answer, and they want a TikTok video. So I think getting someone who's responsible and accountable for thinking about this in an organization, we did it because we know it's important. We expect other companies are going to follow as well if they don't already have something in place.
Brendan, let me ask you one follow-on question before we move forward. This head of AI, are they answering to the chief analytic officer? Are they going straight into the office of a CEO?
Office of the CEO. This is a board level conversation that every organization needs to be having. There are very positive things that can happen with AI. There are really negative things, and it is a risk question right now. So we have it into the office of CEO.
And Brendan, that's exactly what all the institutions that I work with teaching would say about. We try to get the 20-year-olds off of what you were just talking about. And I use the example that I used earlier in here about, oh, let's run it through human resources. And the most significant predictor of hiring was the first name of David. It's like, no, that's illegal and unethical both. You need to be able to do critical thinking. You need to have people who are responsible for that arena, that are tied in and understand this. And yes, you need to be a digital native. It's really great if you can do that. But if that's the only tool you have, you're going to run into real trouble after graduation. The reason for going to a university is to get those critical thinking skills, to be able to apply in an area where you can leverage both all the AI stuff that's changing so quickly, along with ensuring that you're meeting the business needs and you're not going to end up, blowing things up somehow.
I actually think a little bit different here. I think that what happens with this whole technology moving forward at this really tremendous pace, the amount of people that are capable of pushing forward the technology is going down. You need to be to understand so many domains and be able to, in order to make things work, just even make them work. And the amount of people that can do that within the enterprises is actually going down because of the complexity of things. So this causes, I think, two effects. The first one is that more and more power goes down to the I'll say the professional part of the enterprise compared to the administrators or managers. This is one thing which I think is going strong. It was, I mean, looking back at the history of high tech, it began that way, and I think it grows and grows as we move forward. And I think the biggest challenge around that is how, for the enterprises, how do these people make the whole company effective and make other people around them effective in producing work, and that's a huge challenge, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just, it's piggybacking off that. It's also, there's definitely a lot fewer people that can really move the needle on, on the, your AI tech stack, that have a deep understanding of how, like, the inner workings of these models actually work, like, down to a very granular level. But on the flip side, there's, it's never been easier to kind of put Lego blocks together, like, going to Hugging Face, grabbing a model. So, I mean, it's kind of both things happening at the same time where, a data engineer, a regular developer who's never really got into the data science world, the theoretical math side before, they can put together a capability pretty quickly. They can leverage their same skills. That it's not really that data science core, and you have that happening at the same time where you need also that kind of head of AI or that person that really understands exactly what's going on here, so that you can make sure you can deploy capability in the enterprise that's actually doing what you say.
Sure, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, same here. I agree with that. In fact, I was going to say the same thing that Nima said. I don't think data scientist is a sexiest job anymore. Yeah. I don't need to have people writing these complicated gradient boost or whatever programs, because I've got, so AI is amazing.
Yeah.
It's sitting right on top of data, and it's pre-trained. Yes, I need to have some knowledge, obviously, but I don't need a full-fledged data scientist. I don't even need a lot of data engineers. I'll give you some examples. Recently, I saw IBM release their Granite LLM that does mainframe COBOL to Java translations. Last week, AWS told us about 1,000 Java 8 applications that were migrated to Java 17 in 2 days. There's a lot of large language models now inferring the relationships in my incoming data sources and data ingestion, and writing the data transformation scripts out of the box. Now, the big question is how much of that is accurate, how much of rework I have to do. So, and that's a big question because we know these they're not 100% accurate in the output that's generated, but we're getting there. So the future, like kids who are learning programming, coding skills, I think will be a bit challenged with this new competition from foundation models.
Well, and it makes you a little bitter, Sanjeev, when you spend all this time learning how to code and you can go to ChatGPT and say, write me a script for this.
Yeah,
Pretty tough.
you can build a whole website like GPT-4. You say you can even show a picture and you can say, "This is the website I want. Write me my HTML code."
I just saw 16 developers leave our viewer audience to go check out the model that Sanjeev's talking about in a panic. I think it's interesting. I kind of expected you guys as a group to give me a list of titles. Brendan started right up at the top, right? Head of AI and so on. Who else fits in this? Is it compliance people? Is it lawyers? Is it what else? And we don't need to spend a ton of time on it, but did we leave out anybody else that's critical to a successful organization?
I think you still need since you tagged me with the domain expertise term out here, I still think we need somebody who's responsible for each function that's going to use it. So if I use my earlier example, you want to have a human resources person there. You want to make sure that people are using it in the right way, consistent with, employment rules and what the company's mission and vision are and all that kind of stuff. So you don't want to leave out a human resource expert as an example. It just really depends what the use case is for it, and ensuring that you've got somebody who's an expert in that area that has some accountability as well.
I just executed a large global study on AI innovation, and we asked this question about what was your biggest challenge. And it's interesting because it correlates really well to our conversation. 43% of over 500 professionals said skill set is a big concern for us today. So our end users, our customers are worried about, do they have the right people to bring together? And also, interestingly enough, same study, same number of people. After skill set, what's your biggest concern? It was all about data. Can I get to it? Can I orchestrate it? Is it high quality? Do I have access to it? All of these things are underpinnings to this. And I'm sure that we've all seen it a little bit with end users that we speak to, that many of them got distracted over the years and abandoned or slow walked data and architecture projects that they're regretting today in order to take advantage of what's happening. I think the most, what is the acronym FOMO, fear of missing out, is coming from customers who have big gaps in data foundations, and they feel it, and they're worried, and they are trying to figure out how they can go back and solve it. So we're approaching the end. So I want to ask one more kind of big question, and it might be unfair. And we're going to start with Sanjeev because he said his opinion changes every 72 hours. So I need to better understand it. What's next? So that's the question. What's next? Brendan made a great comment before. And we all know this technology's been around for a long time, since the late 50s, for heaven's sakes, right? It's just become interesting in public. I predict that all six of us on today's call, for the first time in our lives over the holiday season, will have to explain to an uncle or an aunt who is older than us what that chat GB thing is, right? And normally my family thinks I fix PCs because I'm a computer guy. And I think it'll be interesting to hear what it's like during the holidays, to hear people ask us these questions. But we've had Gen AI around now for a year. What's the next thing on the horizon that what are we going to be talking about when we do this again in 3 or 4 months? Sanjeev, what's next?
We'll be talking about the focus is shifting now from prototyping to productionalization.
Okay.
And it is productionalization of not Mickey Mouse use cases. of game-changing use cases. So by the way, there's the new role Brendan was saying, the head of AI, I'm hearing is called CDAIO. So Chief Data and AI Officer. So if you are in a senior role and you go to your CEO, you say, oh, look, this amazing AI application, it summarizes my frequently asked questions. It's not good enough. It's a Mickey Mouse use case. If you're a healthcare company, what they want to see is you've got reams and reams of information, unstructured data. Can you help us find a cure faster? Can you help us reduce the time it takes to get FDA approval from 2 years to 6 months, knowing all that we have learned over the last 4 decades? So that is an impactful thing, which I think next time we talk, people will be thinking about these game-changing use cases.
Great insights. What's next? Who else?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, right now, everyone's focused on kind of these, use cases that are around, single LLMs or relatively isolated stacks. I think, maybe not in the next 3 months, but, over the course of next year and the year after that is getting into kind of, these more advanced workflows where LLMs are actually interacting with each other. They're doing and generating, much more complicated end products. And you have, maybe some standardization around how LLMs can interact with each other. So interoperability, so that you can, start to deploy capabilities that are, multi-step, many-step, and, generating very advanced workflows on the fly, and, going beyond just, like code snippet generation, but, saying make me a complex multi level product, or whatever the task is. That's ultimately, I think, where we all think that this is going to go. And to do that, LLMs are going to have to be able to orchestrate infrastructure, orchestrate other LLMs, orchestrate other databases in ways that right now there's no standard, right? And I think that's where there's going to be a lot of opportunity to innovate.
If you follow the hype cycle, right? So we're at the tippity top of the the peak of overinflated expectations. So technically what's coming next, Sean, is the trough of disillusionment. That's technically what's coming. So what will be interesting to see is, I think, Sanjeev, you made a really good point, is it's going to be real world applicable use cases. A lot of what we've seen now in our customer base is that there have been some kicking of the tires, some science projects. We're going to have to prove that this works and can solve real world problems in a cost-effective manner. So we see that coming. I come out of, and I've been in the business intelligence space for many years, and augmented analytics is one of the key things that we focus on at Click. We think that generative AI is going to accelerate the way people think about traditional BI or traditional analytics, and start to see these things come together. I really think that that's going to get accelerated faster than any of us can possibly imagine, especially for those of us that have been in this space for 5, 10 plus years.
I agree with Brandon in the sense that we are just in the first of all in the tip of the hype, and I will add to that we are just in the beginning. So that basically means that the effect on the infrastructure of the data center did not even begin. So looking forward, I would say looking into 2024, I would expect a huge change in data center infrastructure in order to enable the AI effect to spread over the multiple opportunities you guys have mentioned.
Yeah, and I agree on the infrastructure and the burden of AI-intensive processes. I think, though, we haven't really talked about like VR, for instance. I mean, VR and AR present some significant safety and privacy issues, and I think there's going to be a heavier focus on addressing safety, privacy, and potentially, I mean, regulators are going to be catching up on all this, and see where regulators come at this from.
I like finishing up on the privacy and the regulation aspect. It's fluid at very best. EU AI Act is bubbling along, but won't be enforceable for quite some time. NIST or NIST here in the US has got some really great guidelines and ideas, and both of them are very much focused on risk of the applications, risk of data, and so on. And even in the GXP world, we're starting to see some AI guidelines follow up. Number one topic that was responded to in research that I've done when it comes to being responsible with your approach to AI, it was privacy. And so it's a theme that we're going to see across to most of our customers. So it can be pretty interesting. So let me ask like a fast yes or no series of questions before we start to wrap up. Is it the data? Is it the AI? Which one is most important that someone should be looking at? So if I'm sitting in our audience today and I'm worried about both, should I be more worried about my AI practice? Sanjeev made some good points. It should be in a system. There should be oversight. There should be standardizations and processes. Or should I be stopping with the bright, shiny toy aspect and swing my attention back to data? So I'm going to ask for one-word answers. So Brendan, I'm going to pick on you first. AI or data?
I muted myself. That was a really good response, and it was quick.
I thought, Neil, you didn't like that question at all.
No. I would say it's one word: data.
Okay, great. Dave?
Data.
I will take the easy path and say that we're beyond the days that there is a single thing that should bother us. There is always too many things to bother us.
So Jonathan didn't like the question. Good. Nima?
Hey, you got to start with the data.
Cool.
And likewise, data.
Yeah. I think it's great advice for everybody in the room. It's an exciting opportunity that sits in front of you. You probably made big data and general data investments in your architecture, your data management, your governance, quality, all of those things. And if you haven't, and you have big gapping holes, big gapes in what you should have done prior, this is the time. Because I do think that the combination of the data that we all have in our enterprise and AR and AI is going to disrupt our architectures more than anything that I would guess most of us have personally seen. So it's certainly a very interesting opportunity that sits in front of everybody that's listening to us today. That's for sure.
Well said, everyone. Really appreciate the discussion. And I think we really got into the weeds on that. Before we wrap up the show, I'd love to invite each of you an opportunity to promote your company website, your solution, your personal LinkedIn profile, podcast, book, whatever you'd like. We'll start with Sanjeev and end with Sean. 30 seconds or less. Oh, and you're muted.
sanjmo.medium.com, and I have a YouTube podcast called It Depends. So please follow or subscribe. Thank you.
Right on. Appreciate that. Let's go next to Jonathan.
So SpeedData is the first company to develop a dedicated accelerator for processing big data. Please join our site, and we'd love to show you the things that we can do.
Thank you very much. Over to Nima, because I can't go in order.
Or at Kinetica.com, click try free, start using our database, write English and generate, good visualizations in SQL that run quickly.
Thank you very much. Dave, how about you?
Yeah, and you've seen I've got the University of Chicago thing. I've been teaching there for a couple of years, and I do teach elsewhere. And for me, it's more a function of I want to keep up with everybody here. It's very important for us to ensure our students are keeping up with the latest, greatest state of affairs to be productive afterwards.
Well said. Thank you. Brendan, where would you like to send the audience?
I'd like to send everybody to two places. One is click.com, QLIK.com, and the second one would be stage.click.com, and it's stage spelled with an AI in the middle. It'll give you some thoughts about how you need to think about your AI initiatives.
Sounds like a good idea. And Sean, you're muted.
Well, at least I didn't do it at the beginning. To find all of our research and commentary on the market, we have 25 analysts covering all things data and analytics, and we're at barc.com.
Thank you very much, one and all. And thank you again, Sean, for moderating. It has been a pleasure listening in. While we have a few minutes here, I'll take the opportunity to do some self-promo for Solutions Review. And that would be to encourage you to check out insightjam.com. It's our newly launched expert community website. The link is in the description of this video, wherever you're watching. Click it, join that site, connect directly with over 25 experts that are posting daily right now. It is going to be a trove of great research and articles and best practices and videos and how-tos from a lot of the great people that you saw on this panel, in fact, today. So we hope you have an opportunity to go and check it out. But speaking of checking things out, coming up in just a few short minutes, Business Intelligence Insight Jam continues with another panel on metadata management, challenges and solutions. You don't want to miss that. It starts at 3 p.m. Eastern. But for this group, one last time, thank you again, everyone, for your expertise and for your attention. Hope to see you next time. Have a great afternoon.